In the battle of weather phenomenons, I guess they say a hurricane can't outlast an avalanche, with big contributions from Martin Necas and Andrei Svechnikov.
Your Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to a Friday edition of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Thank you to the Everydayer for making this your first listen of the day. 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, talking everything about your Carolina Hurricanes. I'm your host, Zach Martin. I'm the credentialed Carolina Hurricanes beat writer over at the Hockey Writers. I am the co-host of the Surgecast, the weekly Carolina Hurricanes podcast, along with all my duties here at Locked On Hurricanes. Got a fun Friday show for you guys, and we get to wrap up the week with a huge 5-3 win for your Carolina Hurricanes over the Colorado Avalanche, the split the season series. What were the main takeaways in a very crazy-esque game for your Hurricanes, which did see them back in the win column, snapping their 3-game losing streak? And we also get to listen to Rod Brind'Amour postgame, where he actually answered a couple questions I threw his way, talking about depth scoring and also about the guys who stood out tonight for the Hurricanes. But before we get into all that, you can start the season with a bigger turn on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and they'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Now, going into the game for the Carolina Hurricanes, the one big thing that was really evident that they really needed was to have a faster game. I talked about in the preview with Bailey from the Hockey News and how the Hurricanes need to have a bigger jump. After Tuesday's game against Seattle, where you saw them have 7 shots in 2 periods combined, it's one of those things where you play a team like Colorado, you don't want to give them an inch because then it's going to go very sideways. And luckily, the Hurricanes, despite giving a goal to Nichushkin in the first period, they were able to score one themselves to tie the game and luckily get it out of that first period 1-1. Even though they did outshoot them 15-6, so you kind of saw a bigger jump from the Hurricanes. Of course, depth scoring was huge from Eric Robinson in the first goal with an excellent tip off a Brent Burns shot. And the guy with the secondary assist was Martin Necas to get him up to 40 points on the season. So he's the first one to get to 40 out of the 3-man race of him, Kirill Kaprizov of the Minnesota Wild, and also Nathan MacKinnon of the Colorado Avalanche, who played last night against the Hurricanes. So you love to see it from Martin Necas, and that actually made him the fastest Carolina Hurricane in franchise history to hit 40 points. And it also put him in some league company with other, Czech players when it comes again to 40 points. So he actually tied David Pastrnak to get 40 points in 26 games. Now, Pastrnak did it in the 2019-2020 season, and like I said, so him, Tywin Pastrnak, made them the 3rd fastest Czech-born player in history to reach 40 points in a season. The only other guy who did it faster, it's Jaromir Jagr. Back in 1995-96, he did it in 18 games. That really shows you how good Jagr was in the 90s, where you had a dead puck era and with 2-line passes and stuff like that. To get 40 points in 18 games is wild. And then he did it in 1999-2000, where he did it in 21 games. So that's some really good company for Martin Necas, to where you go from, how you put up, you're already at 40 points. You did it in 26 games, which is really huge. And the fact that was a big contribution from the Hurricanes, and you're down, you're tied 1-1, feeling pretty good about yourself. So you're in a better spot than you were last game. And you're out shooting the Avalanche. You saw them have 19 the entire game against Seattle. They had 15 in the first period, held Colorado to 6, and then they were finding ways to get the job done. And the only guy who got the assist on that Lehkonen goal was Makar. And you got to give, Lehkonen the opportunity, the fact that it was a huge goal from him, not Shushkin, sorry. But the Lehkonen goal, what can you do? Piotr, there's nothing you can do about that. When you get sprung like that on a breakaway, he scores. It is what it is. Now, second period, it definitely favored the Hurricanes a lot more, as it was just them all period scoring a couple more goals, which was very huge. And, of course, Seth Jarvis on the power play got the assist from Sebastian Aho and Andrei Svechnikov on a night where the power play went 2 for 5, so 40%. You love to see that, and the penalty kill went 3 for 3. So an overall excellent night for special teams to where you found a way to get a couple goals that you needed, but also shut down the Avalanche. And of course, first game after getting announced to the Team Canada Four Nations roster, Seth Jarvis finds a way to score a goal. Very much needed. It was huge. You love to see that from him. That was his 8th on the season. And you can tell the excitement was really high for them. And the fact, too, during one of the intermissions, they were showing the interview with Seth Jarvis. Seth Jarvis was doing an interview, and how big of a moment was for him in calling his family and talking about how he made that Team Canada roster for Four Nations. And this is after being one of the final cuts from the 2021 World Junior roster. And the fact that, too, he's out of the 25 guys who got selected for the World Junior roster, none of them made the Four Nations for Team Canada. And Seth Jarvis, over the last couple seasons, found a way to make himself one of the 23 best Canadians in the NHL to make that. So big congratulations to him. And, of course, a huge goal in the second period. And then, like I said, pre-game, I talked to Rod Brind'Amour about immediate availability of depth scoring and how much it's needed. We talked about Eric Robinson, Jack Roslovic, and Jackson Blake. Well, we already talked about Eric Robinson scoring the goal in the first period for the Hurricanes. Well, Jack Roslovic got his 13th of the season, with Andrei Svechnikov and Sean Walker getting the assist as well. And that's just a little over 2 minutes after Seth Jarvis scored his goal. So once again, the Hurricanes' depth scoring finds a way to come up when they needed to. So now you get Robinson to tie the game in the first period. Then you get Jack Roslovic making it 3-1. You're feeling really good about yourselves. You're going into the second intermission. You're up 2 on the Colorado Avalanche. You're still stifling them. You outshoot them 13-6 in the second period. So you're going into second intermission, holding them to 11 shots in 2 periods. You're already well over 20. You're around well over 28 at that point. You're really feeling good about how you're playing as a team overall, to where now you're having a game where you're standing out on yourselves, where you have 28 after 2 periods, 13-6, and it was 15-6 in the first. So at that point, you already wasted past your shot total. Now you're up 3-1 on the Avalanche, who had a huge game against Buffalo on Tuesday. So that's really great to see. And then the third period, we saw a lot of goals, and then they came thick and fast in a small amount of time. Of course, talking about Nikushin did score. It was actually in the third period. He got 2 goals, which was both Colorado's goals in that period. Got the one early on from 14:41 into the period, made it 3-2. You're kind of feeling okay, not the greatest, but what can you do? The game is pretty close, but you got to hold the fort. And the Hurricanes did, because they got another power play goal, this time from Martin Necas for his 14th of the season. Andrei Svechnikov and Shane Gostisbehere both got the assist for their 13th and 16th of the season. Of course, that's Andrei Svechnikov's 3rd assist on the night. So Andrei was, while he wasn't scoring goals, he was finding ways to contribute, and especially on the power play. And that's the Hurricanes' 2nd power play goal of the night. And it's good to see that the special teams unit was so dialed in to being able to do their job, and that's something that was really huge for the Hurricanes. And of course, Martin Necas, another multi-point night, gets him up to 41, gives him a little bit of a buffer between Kaprizov and also McKinnon. Outside of the fact that with just how that game was going, McKinnon does get an assist on the second Nikisha goal, which was 24 seconds after the Necas power play goal. Once again, it's now 4-3. You got up. Not that much later, you're up by 2. They get right back in it with another quick goal. But then, the team was playing great defense, finding ways to shut the Avalanche down. And, of course, it was rewarded with an empty net goal from Andrei Svechnikov. You could tell he was really wanting that one. And Jack Drury and Sebastian Aho both got the assist. And that was with 15 seconds left. Basically icing the game. Hurricanes win 5-3. They get their 17th win on the season to put them 17-8-1, and that was their 10th win of the season at Lenovo Center. So it was a very much needed win. It was a great overall win by the guys, just finding a way to play their game, getting back to what makes it work for the Hurricanes. You saw them outshoot the Avalanche. You saw them shut them down for the entire game to where they did not have, they only had 19 shots. So you gave what you had against Seattle and then just supplanted it with the Avalanche. Now, you held them to 19. You go and have 35 shots. You win 5-3. You snap the 3-game skid. Now you're back in the right direction with them going to Long Island on Saturday to face the Islanders. So it's a big momentum boost, being able to beat a team like that and basically shutting down McKinnon to a point the entire night, even just McCarr a point. So they were finding a way to hold the big guys off the board for the most part and being able to play your game. And then you get a huge night from Andrei Svechnikov and also Martin Necas, which we'll talk about more. We'll definitely talk about the takeaways for sure, but huge night from those guys and also just huge night for depth scoring for the team as well. So stick around, guys, as we will do some takeaways from the Hurricanes 5-3 win over the Colorado Avalanche here in a second on a Friday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now, new customers can bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So you need to get a hunch in the middle of the game. You can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Welcome back to segment 2 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. We kind of talked about in segment 1, and definitely the takeaways from the game was the fact that special teams came up huge once again. You really needed against a team like Colorado Avalanche, who are very, very top-heavy. When you look at McKinnon, McCarr, Nichushkin, Rantanen, and stuff like that, and those guys played a lot. They played almost half that third period. They logged a lot of minutes. And that goes to show how, when you look at the roster like the Hurricanes, of how balanced they are 1 through 4 on their forward lines, and of course their defense too. They're not having to run the big guys for basically 15 minutes a period. You're able to roll all 4 lines, and that's what Rod Brind'Amour said post-game, where you get that. It's that balance of being able to roll the lines like you need to and finding a way to keep guys fresh. You're not overworking these guys. So that's kind of what really helped out for the Hurricanes, the fact that they were able to put guys where they need to be, but also keep everyone fresh and make it work for them and roll lines all night, and even on the special teams too. And you go 2 for 5 on the power play, 40%. You'll take that, and the fact that the penalty killers played a phenomenal game, going 3 for 3, and that was even with a huge 5-on-3 opportunity, which was, I would say, probably the craziest part of the game, to where you already had a penalty on Jordan Staal. It is what it is, and then you go and get a questionable tripping penalty, which in reality wasn't a trip. Rantanen just lost an edge, and you could definitely tell Jack Drury wasn't happy because there's no way that would have been called. He was called for tripping. Rod Brind'Amour was absolutely livid on the bench. I mean, you can't blame him. You get a penalty that wasn't really a penalty. Now you put yourself. Now the refs put you down, 5-on-3 in a crucial part of the game where you really don't need that right now. And luckily, that's what And Rod said a post game that could have been something that really could have turned the tide of the game if they scored, because the Hurricanes, every time they get on a 5-on-3 this season, they give up a goal. They've already given up 7 5-on-3s, so. That's not something you want to give a team like the Avalanche as an opportunity. And just for the fact that you saw a very brutal 2 to 4 minute stretch from the referees, is the fact that Stahl's already in the box. You call a non-tripping penalty a trip. Now you get the Hurricanes down on a 5-on-3. And then they kill off the Stahl penalty. He gets basically boarded by Nathan McKinnon. No call is made. So now you get really 2 very, very loud ref you suck chants from Lenovo Center, which rightfully so. I mean, that was a very brutal stretch of calling non-calls and then not calling actual penalties. So that was a huge one. But luckily the Hurricanes in the end did kill that 5-on-3. And that was probably the biggest kill of the entire night, because you did not give the Avalanche the chance. They almost got that inch, but the Hurricanes didn't give him that mile, and the fact that they were able to shut them down on the special teams all night and also take advantage of their penalty kill, you put yourself in a good spot to where that's why you see them win 5-3, because without those 2 power play goals, who knows where this game is at, and especially when you look at the penalty kill too, if they weren't able to kill off that 5-on-3, and let's say the Avalanche do score, it definitely could have turned this game from a 5-3 win to something completely different. And, who knows? Maybe it's a 4-game losing streak for the Hurricanes, but luckily that's not the case. They did their jobs, and you love to see that. And I would say, too, Andrei Svechnikov have a night. 4 points. That is actually his first 4-point night of his career, which is crazy to think about because you know how long Andrei Svechnikov's been in the NHL. You'd think, already by now he would have had a 4-point night, but that was his first one. He got the initial 3 assists on the other goals, and then he was able at the end of the game to put one himself in the empty net. You could tell he really wanted that one too. And you could tell goal scoring is really something he's trying to focus on because right now, you see him after games, still working on a shot. You can definitely tell this is something that's really trying to motivate him to get rolling back on his shooting ability. So just be able to see him, score a goal, that was very much needed. And, we'll listen to Rod Brind'Amour's presser later where he does talk about Andrei Svechnikov. While he did have a 4-point night, there's still a little bit extra that's in there that they really want from him too. So those are the big takeaways, is for the fact that you look at how good special teams was to go 2 for 5 on the power play. You go 3 for 3 on the PK, and then you're finding a way to, get the guys that needed to score goals. And Martin Necas is another multi-point night we talked about in segment 1. So now you're at 41 points. You're still 1 ahead of McKinnon. Now you're 2 ahead of Kirill Kaprizov last time I checked. And now you're really seeing a guy like Martin Necas still finding a way to lead the way for the Hurricanes. And, Rod said at postgame as well, he is their guy right now. He is still rolling. What more can you talk about this guy? That's just where they're at. The fact that Necas night in, night out is the best Carolina Hurricane right now. And that's why you see him so far ahead of the pack when it comes to points on the Hurricanes. Because, like I said, he's already at 41. You're putting yourself in a spot where, you don't want to rely on him game in and game out, but he's finding a way to be clutch when the team needs him the most. Next best is Sebastian Aho at 28. You have Andrei Svechnikov at 22. Shane Gostisbehere at a huge night as well as at 21. So, and then Seth Jarvis, rounds out the top 5 with Eric Robinson at 17 points. But you're still finding a way for Martin Necas to contribute where they need to. And of course, he leads the team in goals with 14. Also leads in assists with 27, and he's a +7 on the night with 5 game-winning goals. He's being that guy for them as well. And I would say even another big contributing factor was depth scoring. I know some people will look at, well, Jack Roslovic is the second leading goal scorer on the team. Why is that depth scoring? And while technically you're not wrong, it's when you come to tiering the list of players for the Hurricanes that need to score goals, Jack Roslovic is, for me, considered like and nothing against him. It's just he's a second-tier guy that you didn't really think would be scoring that many goals this season, especially having 9 last year. You look at a team like the Hurricanes where it's, obviously Martin Necas, then it's Andrei Svechnikov, Sebastian Aho, Seth Jarvis. Those are your main top-tier guys that you have to rely on to score almost every night or close to every night. And then you have your second-tier guys where you're getting that extra boost of that depth scoring. And that's your Roslovics, Robinsons, Blakes, Drury, stuff like that. So nothing against a guy like Roslovic, but you do get that depth scoring from him. And same thing for Robinson. He got his 8th of the season, and that's, putting them in a good spot as well. So now you're looking at, from your 2 acquisitions of Roslovic and Robinson to where now they are combined 21 goals on the season. Any team would gladly take 21 goals from 2 guys like that, where people were questioning those signings in the offseason. And now you have them combining for 21. Roslovic is on a goal scoring wise on a really huge run. And yeah, he has 13 goals and 30 assists, but he's finding a way to contribute for the Hurricanes when needed. So that was another big standout. Depth scoring once again helps the Hurricanes while having guys like Jarvis and Necas and Andrei Svechnikov score goals when they need to as well. But you're getting the secondary tier scoring that you need as well. And of course, talk about this game, you also got to give props to Kucherov. He did let in 3 goals, but he made a lot of great saves, especially a lot of breakaways on Petrushkin, and he stopped Lekkinen on a couple of them, and also Nathan McKinnon. And the Kucherov found a way to play his game perfectly, where he was able to use his stick in the right chances to stop backdoor passes and help play the puck outside of the crease. So he was doing it in a way where he wasn't being overly aggressive, but still playing his style of game where he was able to contribute where he needed to help team out as well. So, of course, you love to see that. And overall, that's why you saw a very huge win from the Hurricanes 5-3 over the Avalanche. Now, that being said, we did meet with Rod Brind'Amour post-game to get his thoughts on the team's game overall. And I was able to ask him a couple questions, especially about the depth scoring and about the 2 guys of the night of Andrei Svechnikov and Martin Necas. To stick around, as we'll get to that here in a second, on a Friday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Welcome back to segment 3 of Locked On Hurricanes, your team every day. Like I said, the end of segment 2, we're going to listen to Rod Brind'Amour's press conference and get his thoughts on, like I said, the depth scoring with Robinson and also with Jack Roslovic, and get his thoughts on Martin Necas and Andrei Svechnikov. So without further ado, let's jump into that right now with Rod Brind'Amour.
We talked pre-game about depth scoring being a huge thing for the Hurricanes, and of course that was against 2 of the guys we talked about earlier. How impactful was that early on, just being able to put them and the Hurricanes in a good spot going?
Yeah, I mean, we obviously, we had a real good first period, and we kind of almost fortunate to come out of it tied, which that was tough because we give up that one just kind of weird one breakaway out of their goal zone, which shouldn't happen, but that's basically their chance of the period. And I thought we played a phenomenal period, but I think what was great, the guys didn't phase them. We just kept playing, which with the way that's gone here the last few games, could have maybe gone a different direction, but they didn't. They just kept playing, and we got rewarded tonight.
4-point for Andrei Svechnikov, and of course Martin Necas, another multi-point game. What does that say about just how those two kind of, in their own ways, impacted the game?
Yeah, well, Svech needed a game like that, I think, for himself, and like I said, I think he's still got there's still another level there he can get to, and then Marty just continued on. I mean, there's not much more we can say. He's just kind of taking it on his shoulders here right now on the offensive side of things, and he's been our guy, so hopefully that continues.
Big thank you to Rod Brind'Amour and the Carolina Hurricanes. And you heard from Rod himself, talking about with the fact that the depth scoring once again comes up huge with Robinson and Roslovic, and just the fact that you're finding ways for everyone to contribute, and that's it was a huge one, especially from Robinson, where you go out of that first period tied 1-1, and then you get the other guys contributing where they need to, and that's what you need because you have to roll all 4 lines, and that's what the system calls for. And right now they're still playing there, and that's what I think really what makes the Hurricanes such a good team is the fact that you're not having to rely on 1 or 2 guys. You got to rely on a very top-heavy top 6 unit. You have scoring all over the lineup, and that's why you see where you get that depth scoring, that second tier assisting from just being able to see guys like Roslovic and Robinson finding their way, and that's what helps contributes them to get the 1-5-3. And then of course at the end you heard Rod talking about Andrei Svechnikov and Martin Necas. And of course, what more can you say about Martin Necas is the fact that he's still finding a way to be that guy night in, night out for the Hurricanes, and that's why he's your outright NHL points leader with 41. And while it's good to have him, you don't want to lean on him every night to carry the team, but he's finding a way to being that guy for them right now and kind of leading the way, and that's huge for them. And of course, with Andrei Svechnikov being his first 4-point night, while that was a huge night for him, there's still that little extra. And Rod said it last year, you got to get plus 1% better. But just seeing Andrei finding a way to get his first 4-point night, finding a way for him to, have a breakout game to where you could you saw how impactful he was, and that was a huge one. So yeah, it's always good the fact that you have a great night like that, but there's still a lot more to do, and you continue to keep getting better every single night, every single game. So if this is just a stepping stone for Andrei Svechnikov to kick it to the next gear, that's a game to do where you get 4 points against the Colorado Avalanche team, who a lot of people are still considered for the playoffs despite their struggles. Of course, they're dealing with a lot of injuries, but having a night like that against Colorado and then still being able to say, well, there's still a little bit more extra we can do on top of that. That does make you feel good at the fact that, okay, Andre's on his way. He's going to have a huge, impact as the season continues on. And if a 4-point night is a huge stepping stone, you'll gladly take that. And that's what you're definitely looking for when it comes to that. So overall, a great win for the Hurricanes, very much needed. It was, kind of hairy in the third period. We get the 2 Nikishin goals to basically get you back within 1. But the Hurricanes had a resolve. They didn't let it phase them. They found a way to still stay out front. Once they took over the lead, they never gave it back up, and they were just finding ways to counter every Colorado Avalanche chance, and then found ways themselves to score a goal. So you get 2 in the period, very huge. You come out with the win 5-3. Like I said, you snap that 3-game winning streak. You're back in the win column. You get back over that 4 goals a game. Now you go to Long Island Saturday to play the Islanders, and it'll be a very, very interesting game to see how that works out, because it's their lone road game for the next couple of weeks, because once they come back, they're back for another 4 games at home. So we listen to Mike Maniscalco, on the broadcast, or you heard about it on the podcast, momentum doesn't really carry over, but I still think like that feeling of, okay, we snapped the skid, we're kind of feeling again, we're kind of back in that space where we can play our game, and I think that will go a long way. So hopefully that does carry over to Long Island on Saturday, and they go into UBS Arena, get the win against the Islanders, finish up that 1-game roadie, come home, take care of business, and start piling up the wins. You get to win number 20 for the season. After you go, hopefully you beat the Islanders on Saturday for 19, then you come home and get 20, and then you just keep building on from there. But honestly, great game. You love to see it from the Hurricanes back in the win column. Huge nights from guys that really need it. And obviously the depth goes a long way, and special teams finds a way to be impactful once again for the Carolina Hurricanes. But guys, that will wrap up a Friday edition of Locked On Hurricanes. Thank you for making this podcast your first listen of the day. If you wanted to find a second listen, make sure to check out Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from Steal and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or where you listen to podcasts. If you want to keep up with me, everything I got going on in terms of covering your Carolina Hurricanes, you can follow me at OneTrueZach on X. The podcast is LO_Hurricanes. I am on Blue Sky at the Zachary Martin. I do have link trees on both my bios on both those apps, where you can go check out all my writings on the Hockey Writers, or go to thehockeywriters.com, search Zach Martin. You'll find my author page, and you'll find all my articles over there. A busy Thursday, dropping 3. Going to have another one coming out later today, or whenever you do listen to this. There will be another article Friday talking about the game overall. If you also want to check out my other podcast, The Surgecast, just go to Surgecast on all podcast platforms and on YouTube. For this show, on Apple, Spotify, all that, just go to Locked On Hurricanes, subscribe, leave a 5-star rating and review so that way I can read it on the show. For YouTube, Locked On Hurricanes, subscribe, hit the bell notification so you don't miss the show, hit the thumbs up button, let me know if you like the show as well, and in the comments, let me know who was your big standout for the Hurricanes in their 5-3 win against the Colorado Avalanche. Make sure to share with all their Caniacs to become everydayers just like you. But I hope everyone enjoyed the Friday edition of the podcast. Hope everyone enjoys their Friday. Hope everyone has a great weekend. Until next time, as always, let's go Canes.